Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from today. Thank you for joining our weekly live stream. This is a live podcast interview that we do every Tuesday, same time, same place, streaming to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Today's topic is the future of smart factories and Industry 4.0, which is a super interesting topic to me and hopefully many of you watching here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. And Third Stage Consulting is an independent consulting firm that helps clients through the world with their digital transformations. And this interview is part of our Transformation Ground Control podcast. And you can find episodes of this show by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. It's a weekly podcast. We take these live recordings that you're part of here today. We repackage it, edit it, add some more content to it, and put out new episodes of that show every Wednesday. So check out transformationgroundcontrol.com to see current and past episodes there. I'll introduce our guest here in just a moment, but first, a couple logistical things. We're going to be taking a lot of audience questions here today. And in fact, I hope you ask lots of questions because I've got my list of questions, but it's more important to hear what you guys want to talk about. So any questions you have, please drop them in the chat. We are watching the chats from all the platforms we're streaming here to today. And speaking of the chat stream, if you don't mind just dropping in the chat what city and country you're joining from. We tend to draw a global audience, so I always like to see where everyone's joining from here today. So just drop in the chat if you don't mind, city and country you're joining from. Love to hear from you here this morning to get started. And joining us today to discuss this topic of the future of smart factories and Industry 4.0 is a panel from PCG, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and their company here, starting with Adam Combs, the CEO of PCG. So Adam, thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks, Erica. We're really glad to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely.
My name's Adam Combs. I'm the CEO of PCG. I'm one of the founding partners, and I've been in the business for about 30 years now. So I've been around a few times. So PCG is essentially a leader in delivering on manufacturing solutions, Industry 4.0 into 5.0 as well. In and around cloud-based solutions. What we're really doing, Eric, is we're helping bridge kind of that gap between capabilities of the that people buy and the promise of those solutions, and actually helping our customers realize that value within their business. And then our goal is to really implement those as platforms, not point solutions, so that there's a vehicle for our customers to have a sustainable path so that they can grow and adapt and evolve with that platform, as opposed to being a kind of a one and done experience for them.
Sure.
And by having strong relations with our OEMs and really knowing what's there and what's coming, having a team full of great a technology as well as an industry perspective, proven solutions. We implement things that are repeatable, as well as some of our own solutions that are repeatable, and then having kind of the back end managed services so customers are stable, as well as being able to continue to enhance and improve their experience with what they've implemented. So really proud of my team. We've been recognized by Infor and NetSuite and other OEMs dozens of times, as whether it be Manufacturing Partner of the Year or Spotlight Award winners. So I'm really proud of my team, really excited to be here and share some of what we're doing with you guys today. With me, I'll hand it off to David Gustovich, who actually leads our Smart Factory team. So Dave, if you don't mind introducing yourself, that'd be great.
No, thanks, Adam. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dave Gustovich here. As Adam indicates, I run with Ken Staresinic our Industry 5.0 and Smart Factory practice here at PCG. Been in the industry much longer than I like to admit anymore, but going on to about 40 years. Been in the operation manufacturing world, first as a consulting partner for many, many years. And then Ken and I branched out on our own to start our own manufacturing, the cloud solution that was ultimately acquired by Oracle NetSuite back in 2016. Ken and I had a stint with Oracle NetSuite for about 5 years before we left to join PCG and help launch and start the Industry 5.0 and Smart Factory practice for PCG. So very happy to be here and happy to be a part of the conversation. So Eric, thank you as well. Ken?
Hello, everyone. Just to add to what Dave said, our entire business career has been in the manufacturing and operations environment. So to kind of echo what Adam said, we've really crafted our view of smart factory, industry 4.0, 5.0, from being really at the point where work is executed, products are produced in a wide array of environments. So we think we bring to the table a very good synergy of things that are relevant for all manufacturers, but the recognition of what's important to each of them. And that's what we're excited to share with you all today.
Absolutely. It's good to have you guys all here today, and appreciate getting, three experts in this field here, all in the same room. This is great. And it also sounds like you guys have a very focused solution too, which will really serve itself well here in this discussion here today. But just to get started, just to help set the context and sort of start at the foundational level of understanding smart factories, let's just talk about what is a smart factory. If we start with the real basic stuff. Can we start with you, Adam?
Sure. So I'll probably hand it off here in a moment to give a little more nuanced view with my team. But for me, actually Industry 4.0 can mean a lot of different things to different people, and smart factories in particular, right? So for some companies, that's really getting into like how am I using robotics in my factory to perform physical activity. For the context of today's conversation, what we're really talking about is how are the various technologies that are in place within the kind of the IT infrastructure of a company, their security, their authentication, the different solutions that compose their ecosystem. So the enterprise system, maybe they have a WMS system, maybe they have an asset management system, certainly a smart factory solution like we bring to the table that's more focused around shop floor types of activities. Those are all together in an integrated framework, right? So in that framework, there's basic foundational elements that you need to have, right? So a data framework, an integration layer, of course, the applications themselves, and then the means by which those solutions are talking together, and in particular with machines and being able to face with IoT enabled devices, right? So that's kind of the fabric, if you will, of the customer's environment. And a lot of those solutions today are, I think, built generally more towards kind of their space that they're filling within the market, other than kind of like the integration layers. And so what we're doing is we're kind of trying to flip the lens and we've built our solution to kind of blend those solutions together and work together and do it more from the view of what the customer experience is going to be and how their particular need is going to be met across an ecosystem as opposed to within the context of a particular application. So that's kind of my view of it. Dave, you probably have more to say on this subject, so I'll pass it off to you and Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And we'll dig deeper as we go forward, but there's really four pillars that we think about as you think about smart factory, right? Because words mean different things to different people, but the four pillars for us, and again, we'll peel back as we go further into discussion, is, the first thing is, right, it's all about how do we create an environment for success. That's the first pillar. And that normally means that you have to be integrating with your system of record. And that system of record for most customers is the ERP system. So it's extremely important that your manufacturing systems have that real or near real-time integration to that system of record. So that's one. Number two is you have to have real-time or near real-time control of your shop floor and your shop floor process. And traditionally that might be referred to as an MES or as a SCADA system or as the distributed control system, but those typically have been standalone. But they need to begin to be integrated to support that Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0, and some of the other technology like AI and machine learning that's coming out. The third pillar as you really begin to think about it, is we cannot forget about the frontline operators. You know, they play a crucial role in terms of the human intelligence that they provide, but more importantly, we have to make them aware of how the process is performing, so that while the process is performing, they have the ability to be proactive against anything that might be causing an off schedule or a variant condition to what they would otherwise expect. So being able to change that habit or that behavior of that operator is extremely important by giving them the relevant information that they need. But as important is the interface that we give to them for that vehicle to share that information has to be extremely user friendly to support that adoption process and to make the process of smart factory sticky.
Mm.
And the last pillar that we'll continue to talk about is obviously having the right types of analytics and the right types of metrics and KPIs so that you have that line of sight visibility in near real time as possible. Because we all know that you have to have not only a rear view mirror view of your business, but you need to have more of a windshield view of your business. So
Mhm.
having those right analytics and those right reports and scorecards are extremely vital to helping a customer to drive that continuous improvement.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts, Ken?
Well, to kind of tag with Dave a little bit, when you think about the umbrella, to echo a couple key points, um, integrating to that system of record implies that the platform of which the business is running and all of the different roles within that enterprise need to be engaged together, looking at data that is consistent with good integrity so they're all able to perform their roles appropriately, and then taking advantage of, I'm a shop floor guy, so the connected operator is really important to us, and it's critical that everyone within the organization, back to those metrics, that real-time visibility Dave spoke of, everyone is reacting to what's appropriate for the role that they perform, and they're all seeing it through the lens in which they need to execute their responsibility, but it's a consistent presentation. I'm sure everybody that's participating today has lived through scenarios of, we thought we had a great series of bundled disparate systems that everybody thought they were doing the right thing until we realized we weren't all using the same information. And there were a lot of unintended consequences. In an Industry 5.0 environment, everything is synthesized. The system, the operator, the equipment, nobody's left out of the mix. That's been the big step forward from 4.0, when there was such a focus on equipment and taking advantage of technology, that kind of the operator tended to get left behind. And it's that human intelligence that's right there at the point of execution, because we can't rely on even the most sophisticated distributed control system to do everything for us. Nothing is that completely automated.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting that you guys are sort of calling out an important differentiator here, in that you've got your system of record, which oftentimes is an ERP system or some sort of back office system, but then there's other technologies that typically are required to do the other things you're talking about. And so
Right.
I think it's important, as we talk through this, to recognize that it's not as simple as just putting in an ERP system and assuming that's going to enable your smart factory and give you the automation that you're looking for, is sort of what I'm hearing so far. And Ken, you just sort of touched on the concept of Industry 4.0, and I've heard you mention Industry 5.0 as well. What is the difference? So what we just talked about was smart factory. Is there a difference, or what is the difference between smart factory, Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0? Like, as we hear these buzzwords and these terms in the industry and in the media, how do we unpack that? How do we get our heads around what the differences are, if there are any? I'll start with you, Adam.
Well, from my point of view, the smart factory is a component of Industry 4.0. They are somewhat synonymous, but to me, it's Industry 4.0 is an overarching thing which can go beyond what we're talking about today. To me, the difference between Industry 4.0 and 5.0 is Industry 4.0 is really focused on the integration and the communication between all of these disparate technologies, and having the right foundation, or having a foundation. Industry 5.0 is taking it to that next phase. I'm saying, okay, beyond working in a prescribed way, what's going to best serve the human, right? So how are we building solutions, and how are we giving them the ability to connect into the different platforms in a way that is focused on their needs, the insights they need, the activities they need to perform, and in a way that's related to their business processes, as opposed to simply connecting the different solutions together. So from my point of view, it's that human focus which really differentiates 4.0 and 5.0. I know that's a topic for a lot of people to have different varying opinions, but for me, that's the most important element.
And Eric, I would add, from the way that we think of 5.0 with smart factoring, it's one of the reasons why, we've built smart factory, our solution set, the way that we have is, Ken touched on it, Adam's touched on it, that over the years, customers have invested in multiple business systems. In some cases, customers have anywhere between 15 to 30 different standalone business systems. Whether it's an ERP, whether it's a LIMS system, whether it's an Historian, a SCADA system, it goes on and on and on, standalone quality systems, etc. And part of the vision of 5.0 is, how do you bring all these disparate and siloed business systems together in a way that harmonizes and aggregates data in a meaningful way, that it presents it to the different user groups that Ken said. And so a lot of legacy systems, a lot of legacy MES systems that are out there, they don't really do that very effectively without there being a very extensive, heavy engineering lift to build that as a one-off solution. And what we've done purposely here at PCG is to say, to support that Industry 5.0 vision, we need to have the next generation technology platform that allows us to integrate with that system of record, that allows us to integrate with that standalone quality system, that allows us to integrate with that machine PLC, or to be able to bring in data that today is only collected manually. And we need to have that ability to create that in a consumable way that then easily presents it to the different user communities so that they can begin to act upon it. And so that concept of having a next generation platform that allows you to stitch all this together is extremely critical to drive that correlation of those outcomes of interest that customers are always trying to control, whether it be around cost, quality, service, throughput, etc. And you touched on something, I think, a little bit earlier that's extremely important, is that most ERP systems, right, are transactionally based systems. They do not support operation-based information. They don't have the ability to really capture data in real time like a manufacturing system can. But what we need to be able to do is to automate as much as that transactional information as possible by taking that data from the shop floor, whether it's from the machine, whether it's from a quality system, whatever the case may be, and allow those transactions to be automatically updated. That's part of what our smart factory solution does as well. And that's important because what it does is it takes a lot of those resources that today are being more administrative and entering data after the fact, and it converts those resources into more value added resources, where now you can spend more time analyzing the data and improving the processes, as opposed to just recording the data. And so that's part of our vision as we go forward with our smart factory solution set and approach as well.
Right. Right. How about you, Ken?
Well, what I would suggest to the audience, and what we've tried to do, and Dave hit on it very well, is when you look at your enterprise, and it could be a series of locations that could have grown through acquisition. You could be one location, and even within one facility, you may have different value streams, different vintages, different OEMs. So to Dave's pillars of the smart factory, there's a couple common tenets. That system of record is a common tool used by all. And the only other consistent process or element of the process are the people that need to perform and execute reliably, predictably at the appropriate quality and cost level every day to hit that service threshold. So the key is, with Industry 5.0 and automation, everybody doesn't have the resources to chase the newest piece of technology. And Adam mentioned robotics earlier. Hey, in many ways, the prudent Industry 5.0 practitioner, to Dave's point, can even take a manual process and with the right smart factory tools, elevate the game of the organization in such a way that predictability and reliability and efficiency just become a natural thread of what happens every day. And the operators appreciate not having a robot to do their work with them, but really having the right tools to be involved, to be engaged, and knowing they're doing the right thing, whether it be work instructions to guide them or the right reporting elements that they know they're on track, or to Dave's point earlier, visibility too, and clarity that their process is in control and they are just clicking right along.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense. And there's a lot of reference that you guys have made so far to data and just the whole concept of capturing data. Where does the data reside? How does it integrate back to the system of record and vice versa? Tell us a little bit about Internet of Things too. I think one of you mentioned in passing Internet of Things. But as we think about Internet of Things, first of all, what is it at a high level, just for those that maybe aren't super familiar with it? Well, what is Internet of Things and how is it delivering more value, or how can it deliver more value for manufacturing organizations?
Yeah, I can take that one, Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, IoT or industrial IoT, as we tend to think of it in the manufacturing world, it's really about connecting to the different devices or the different data sources, right? And the most common data source that people would think about today would be the PLC. And if you think about that program logical control system that's on all of the equipment, there could be anywhere between 60 to 70 to different 80 to 80 data tags that you can connect to that gives you insight as to how that piece of equipment is performing. Think of that as your dashboard on your car, your fuel gauge, your oil temperature, your water temperature, your speed, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a component of IoT. But there's also data that lives out in the manufacturing environment that isn't captured in that PLC, but is relevant to bring in. So you want to be able to capture information like humidity or temperature because it has an impact in terms of the way that you perform or your product performs. So being able to connect to other devices seamlessly and cost effectively is extremely important from an Internet of Things perspective as well. So again, just staying from a manufacturing point of view, being able to bring that relevant data into a next generation manufacturing platform that then can correlate that to other data of interest is extremely important. And that's where you have to have that platform that has that ability to make those connections. And oftentimes, Eric, we get asked, well, where do I start with an IoT or a Industry 4.0 type of an initiative? And a lot of times we'll say to a customer, if you already have PLCs that are integrated into an OPC server, as an example, because that's a fairly common communication protocol for machines out there today. We can connect to those data tags that are already streaming to that OPC server literally within hours and in a few days to start to drive value for our customers. But let's say there's no data out there. Well, we can drop in very low cost sensors like a little brake beam or a little infrared beam that allows us to count things going through a case counter or going across the check weigher as an illustration. That creates that digital signature that we can begin to bring in. But one of the other areas that is oftentimes probably not as understood as being a huge value creator for customers is in that quality and in that inspection control area from an IoT. I mean, think about how many times you walk out onto the shop floor and you see people with clipboards. And a lot of times that's the inspection, that's the quality check. You know, that's that person that's doing that pre-op checklist at the beginning of the shift. Let's digitize that. Let's put paper on glass. Let's allow that data to become digitized so that we can turn it into information that allows us to be able to act upon that very quickly. And a lot of times that's a very good place for customers to start when they think about the Internet of Things and their digital transformation process that begins to set the foundation for Industry 4.0 and 5.0 as we've been talking.
Yeah, very interesting.
And yeah, you know, Eric, to Dave's comments, I would add to your second question, where does the value creation really come in? I mean, that's obviously critical to everybody on the call today because everyone's making investments in their business. There has to be quantifiable returns. And, you know, Amar's question about BPM, business process management, you know, what we do with the smart factory is very similar to those elements of harmonizing, bringing together all the methods to control and manage someone's business. You know, from the shop floor perspective, to Dave's point, that operational data and mastering of it is all about creating process predictability and being able to correlate process control to product performance and reliability. Dave mentioned humidity and temperatures. If I was a baker and I'm running a plain bagel down the line through the oven, how I control those processes are very different when I suddenly introduce cinnamon raisin to make sure that, you know, managing the process in the same way that I just finished the plain bagel run, I have the potential to do very bad things if I don't recognize my product is very different and that process must be controlled in a different way. Recognizing what happens on the shop floor may influence how the marketing team, how the sales team, what the maintenance team is doing. IoT gives you the opportunity to bring all that together, understand things at the lowest common denominator, and that drives potential value in many avenues for the business at large.
Eric, and you know, the one area of risk mitigation I would share from our experience with our audience today is, you know, we often like to tell our customers, just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Right.
And
one of my favorite lines too.
Yeah. And what do we mean by that? You know, just because you have 60 data tags in that PLC that you can connect to, use the Pareto principle, right? There's going to be 20% of those data tags that are going to have 80% of the impact on those outcomes of interest that are most important for you. So part of what PCG does, beyond providing enabling technology that enables that integration of all those data elements and that amalgamation of the data, is that we help our customers to understand what are those critical few process data variables or attributes that we need to connect with, that when correlated and associated with other data elements that come from another business system, really gives you powerful information that can be very proactive in the way in which you manage your business. And that's one of the distinctions about Industry 5.0 from our perspective, is that we want to give you visibility to those attributes and those parameters that have the greatest impact on those outcomes of interest, so that when you're running a product and it doesn't perform the way you want the business system to be able to tell you what two process parameters went out of tolerance so that you can act upon it. And you want to be able to do it while the process is still running, as opposed to waiting for a report a day later or a week later that says, oh, by the way, your performance on this product run was 25% less effective than what it was the last time you ran it. So that's part of what we're driving to with the types of technology that we're enabling and the service that we enable with our customers as well.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I'm still hungry from the thought of a cinnamon bagel from Ken's example there on the factory line. But one
Always
thing,
a good one, Eric. Everyone likes to eat, so I knew I could hook somebody. I was expecting it to be the audience, not you, but that's good too.
Yeah, we'll see if I can make it through this interview without having to eat something now. But here's a question from Amar on LinkedIn, and his question is: what are the similarities with business process management and Industry 4.0 smart factory? So in other words, like, maybe I'll rephrase it a little bit and hopefully capture the intent of Amar's question here. And thank you for the question, Amar. But how does process improvement factor in here? In other words, do you find that a lot of the technologies you guys are deploying is really just sort of streamlining and automating existing processes, or do you find that a lot of manufacturers are totally overhauling their processes as a result of some of this new technology?
Well, it's a great question. So if you think about Industry 4.0 versus 5.0, and what we've talked about, really what you're looking at is, instead of working for the systems, figuring out how to make the systems work for you, right? So that's kind of a fundamental shift. And when you're able to do that, then you can really focus on what is it that the function that the person, the process that they're trying to achieve, what are the steps that are critical, and then what are the non-value added steps that they're performing simply because the systems make them do the same thing in 3 different places, or they have to record something in a way that allows, an ERP to have the same insight as the MES might have, right? And so the way that this is impacting our customers is it allows them to perform the same function one time and allow that information to flow, whether it's automating an activity, whether it's providing data for future analytics, or whether it's an actual event that you say, when this happens, I want to, perform some kind of automation and let somebody know, either to perform an automated activity or to provide insight for someone to take action on immediately. So it really transforms the ability to accomplish the efficiencies that have been kind of promised for decades, right? So it's that the analytics, the RPA, kind of those foundations are there. And then the next level is then AI. Once you have those foundational elements kind of underneath of you, it allows that activity to be the agent of change that was just suggested. In essence, don't make me do the same thing 4 different places in different forms and manners. Allow me to do what I need to do one time, and then have it go and do what it, needs to be propagated for me. So I think that, for me, that's one way to look at it.
Right. Yeah, makes total sense. And you hit the biggest buzzword of the day in your response there, Adam, with AI, and let's dive into that a bit, even though I was going to try and make it a little bit further in the discussion without talking about AI, but it's really difficult not to. But how does AI factor into all this? How is AI changing smart factories and manufacturing in general?
It's a pretty popular word right now, right? And so AI means a lot of different things to different people, to different vendors, and some of it may not be classically AI, but it's being labeled AI. Most technology, big tech, as well as the software OEMs in the enterprise space, are embedding some kind of AI, whether it's data insight and leveraging analytics, whether it's generative AI at some level. But everybody's kind of got their view on what AI is. For us, what we're really doing is we're making sure that our customers have the right foundation. So the data platform, the integration platform, the application stack, and the security protocols, and then we're combining that with the tool sets that are available around AI, around data analytics, RPA, and those types of things to provide human insight. We're kind of viewing the introduction of what we're doing into algorithms that are more kind of that classical view of AI as a second phase after customers have kind of built the framework to be able to provide what they need to for those algorithms to do the work for them. And in reality, PCG is not going to be the one building those algorithms, right? We're going to be leveraging the tools and technology of the OEMs that we work with to provide that experience to our customers. So I don't know, Dave or Ken, if you have anything to add there, but that's kind of my view.
No, I would just add that AI, obviously, it has a lot of different connotations in the marketplace. From a manufacturing perspective, our view is that any AI engine requires data to feed it, data for it to learn. And part of what our objective is, and you're kind of hearing a consistent theme through our discussions today, it's really all about making sure that we're collecting the right information. So whether you're using predictive analytics, whether you're using machine learnings, whether you're using some of the automation and AI that's coming down the pike, and that's going to continue to mature, we want to make sure that the customer has that in a digital format that allows them to take advantage as that AI and as those other algorithms continue to mature. And you see that today, whether it's with Microsoft, whether it's with Google and other companies, they're putting their different AI engines out there. And they're already telling the marketplace that the output is not always going to be right. But what they want to do is put it out there so that they're collecting more data, so that those algorithms and those AI solutions become more learned. And then they can ultimately learn as they capture more data. So our goal here is to make sure we're building a strong foundation so that we take advantage and drive value of what we can from that data. And as the AI algorithms and processes continue to mature, is to make sure that we're investing in a manufacturing platform that we have in Smart Factory that allows us to grow and continue to advance as those AI models become more prevalent from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah, great response. I mean, that's a really good overview. And it sounds like there's an opportunity here for manufacturers as they're capturing more information, on the shop floor and through machines and Internet of Things and all this data capture. It sounds like there's a great opportunity to leverage that data now and actually use some of these AI tools that your OEMs that you work with are building into their products. Do you find so far, I know we're early in the AI journey or the transition over to AI within the enterprise tech space. Do you find that the OEMs you work with, and when we talk about OEMs, by the way, just to back up, we're talking about NetSuite, Infor, some of these ERP providers that you bolt onto or that you build your software on top of. Is that a fair summary? Yes. So do you find that their AI models that they're building now within these core systems, do you find that the AI models are driving enough of where the value could reside in terms of all this data that you guys are capturing on your side with your technology? Or do you find that, in other words, is there a mismatch there between what the AI models can do so far and the data you're capturing? Or do you find that it's actually starting to work from that perspective?
Can I take that one first, guys? I think what's important, Eric, is when you look at the platforms, those ERP systems, to say, echo what Dave mentioned earlier, those systems of record are always transactional. And a lot of the initial efforts around AI are related to transaction-oriented data. Back to Amar's question earlier about BPM, we're all about not only helping that system of record be configured appropriately and correctly, but how do we make sure with a smart factory that the operational data is setting the table for continuous improvement? So as those pillars, the fourth pillar Dave mentioned, the analytics that a smart factory needs to have readily available for all the users at various levels. That's where, back to your previous question about the IoT and capturing the right kind of data, leads to the operational decisions that drive value and naturally get manifested in much more efficient transactions, the ability to satisfy more customers, really drive down a cost of goods sold that gives them a competitive advantage. That a lot of the AI endeavors right now are about mining the appropriate market and customer base. If concurrently you're driving down that cost of goods sales, from a manufacturing perspective, you're giving your organization tremendous leverage to take advantage of that AI that comes through the transactional elements.
Yeah,
and Eric, I would add, what we're seeing with some of the ERP vendors is that, they're applying AI and some of the predictive analytics as it relates a lot to the demand and supply plan process, where they can begin to predict, what's going to be late, what orders are going to be impacted, so that it gives your planners and your schedulers the ability to be more proactive in responding, to those potential out of tolerance conditions. But we're also seeing AI being employed. I was just at a conference with some of our other executives, Adam, down in Houston, where we heard one of the OEMs that we partner with talk about how AI is really being embedded into a lot of their communication protocols. Whether it's from sales orders, whether it's for customer responses, et cetera, et cetera. But if you take a look at like what Oracle is doing with their autonomous database, where it's self-correcting, it's self-monitoring, self-correcting, there's a lot of technology under the hood that's being employed by these types of companies, and Infor and other companies are doing the same. And so what we're trying to do here at PCG, right, is not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but make sure that when that type of capability of enabling technology is available, we want to make sure that we provide that as a means for our customers to have access to that through our smart factory, suite of applications as well. I do see that there is a question, if I might, Eric, about data security.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you guys that actually.
Yeah, that Darren had brought up. And I think, one of the critical things that we believe in, right, is, obviously data is extremely important. And OEMs are beginning to understand how important that data is within that PLC. That's one of the reasons why they're beginning to make that data proprietary, because they don't want to lose that potential revenue stream, and they want you to pay for access to your data. You've already bought the piece of equipment, but now they want you to pay for a subscription for you to get access to that data in the PLC. So that's a little interesting twist in terms of what we see going on in the marketplace. But from a data security perspective, one of the things that we believe in firmly when we are integrating into devices or into machines or into PLCs, we want to be a read-only business system. We do not want to have any communication protocol that is bidirectional. Now, it's not to say that we can't do that, but our business choice from a product development is that we want to be read-only, because we know that if we open up a channel of being able to write data back to that PLC, that can introduce some potential vulnerability into your network. So that's one thing. The other thing is that by having the right secure data connection architecture within the technology that we're employing, and some of the encryption and some of the other packets of data that we use and how we integrate back into other systems, that's also something that we take critically important as a part of our product design. So, the one thing I would tell you that, from a data security perspective, keep it as much as possible from a read-only point of view, and make sure that when you are working with any technology customer, ask them to show you what their data protection and data security protocols are. And there are industry standards that are out there, AWS and Microsoft Azure and others, they have their own, and those are all ones that are very good in terms of how they're leading the marketplace around that data security capabilities as well.
Yeah, I would just add to that, and I'm not the technologist amongst the team, Eric, but protocols around OAuth 1 and OAuth 2 designed to protect your data that need to be incorporated in any of those data transmissions. Those apply the appropriate rigor, Darian, that ensure that your data is safe as it's been moving around. I saw Trey ask a good question. It's pretty broad. Trey, if you had a particular discipline within those hard skills you're thinking about, we're touching on a lot of things today. Darian's question was very much about connectivity, integration, and security. A lot of the IoT question is based around controls engineering, understanding OPC from a broader business system perspective. That requires some understanding of financial elements, manufacturing, production and planning, materials control. Is there a particular area, if you want to throw it back out in chat, that's of most interest to you? Because the hard skills vary across those 4 disciplines I referenced. And just from a BPM perspective or continuous improvement, obviously understanding process engineering is really important at the subtleties and being able to distinguish, like Dave said, there's 25 variables out there, 4 make a difference. Discovering which 4 to really drive is the foundation for your AI. That's where the value is going to come from. Right. So if there's something we can fine tune that response, making giving you another general answer for a very broad question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And here's a comment from Paul on LinkedIn. Paul says, my recommendation is for AI to generate the impact on the overall SNOP based on the data being collected from these systems. Gives almost as close to real-time information as possible. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or knee-jerk reactions to that.
No, we would agree 100%. And Paul, it's unfortunate in terms of how many customers that we go into that do not really have a very good SNOP process. And exactly what happens is what you said in your follow-up comment, right? Is that there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction. And we do see, and that's why we do see a lot of AI and a lot of attention being given to the demand and the supply planning process within customers. Some might think of it as the MRP kind of process as well too, because there's a lot of nuances, right? There's a lot of rippling effects that takes place whenever a vendor is not able to supply a purchase order receipt on time, or whenever production doesn't get made, or the right quantity doesn't get made, or the right quality. All that has a rippling effect through that demand and supply plan. And so we do see that as being a very big area of opportunity to amalgamate information, both in real time, but also based on the demand signals that are coming in from the marketplace, your customers, whether it's an actual order or a forecasted order, to be able to drive a more robust, what we would call sales and operation planning, but also drive that through from a budgeting perspective in terms of what can we forecast in terms of what our profitability would be. So we do see customers, some of the larger OEMs out there, beginning to put a lot of investment there, some of which we've talked about already today. And the critical thing for us, right, I started with one of the pillars earlier, was creating an environment for success. And that is exactly one of the most critical elements of having an environment success, is making sure we have the right material at the right place for the right equipment in the right environment at the right time. And it sounds kind of cliche-ish, but the reality of it is, I mean, that's what Smart Factory really begins with, is having that environment set up so your people can be successful within.
Yeah.
And if I could, Dave, just Anthony's original question, again, that being set up for success, Anthony, includes that right infrastructure within the facility that you can reliably transmit information very quickly with a high degree of frequency. So again, we're not the right guys on the call today to answer that question specifically, but we'll work with Eric to try to work through our teammates that are more specialists in that to put a response back out as part of the podcast.
Yeah. And I wasn't ignoring you there, Anthony, but I knew that was a super technical question that I wasn't sure if we could get into, but it is a good point though. I mean, certainly the wireless aspect of things can be very important, especially when you're dealing with rural and distributed manufacturing organizations for sure. What about when manufacturers are going through this transition to all these new tools we're talking about, Internet of Things and AI and smart factories, Industry 5.0, all this stuff. When manufacturers are going through these changes and these transformations, what are some of the biggest challenges you see in terms of adopting these technologies and getting the value potential out of the technologies?
Well, I'll start, Eric. And, first I would say don't overthink it, right? If you haven't really started the journey, pick a place and start. The old cliche again of kind of starting with a pilot or a proof of concept. It's all about learning, right? And you don't have to be perfect, so don't get into that postponed perfection mode. So one of the biggest things that we see with customers is that, they spend way too much time trying to analyze where to start. And then once they get into it, the other big thing that we see is customers are always trying to force the newer technology and the newer approaches back to what they always used to do. And I can't tell you how many times customers are sitting there saying, okay, well, I see what the platform is capable of doing, but can you make it do what we've been doing for the last 25 years? And that introduces a lot of risk because now you're creating a lot of customizations. And yes, I know you want to make people comfortable because you want to try to help improve that adoption, but there is a point where you have to create that ability to gain the advantage of what that new technology is able to bring to you. So we would always say, start small. And one prime example that we do with all of our customers is that if you do have pen and paper out there, if you have clipboards that people are collecting data manually, whether it be on a quality or an inspection or on the shop floor, to capture what you produce or what your downtime was, begin to capture that digitally, because that will start to create a means by which to do richer analytics and become more proactive in the way in which you respond from an improvement initiative. The other thing would be, don't try to bite off too much at one time. We already talked about, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. If you're going to integrate to a piece of equipment, which we always think is good to try to bring some automation in, some data collection automatically, focus on those 3, 4, 5, 6 data tags that are going to have that greatest impact on what's going to give you visibility to your throughput, around your product quality, around your product cost, and obviously your service levels, because those are the things that are going to drive your profitability levers within your business. And so we help many of our customers, decide where to start, but the key thing is to start. So those would be some quick learnings that we see at a very, very high level with our customers. Guys, anything else?
You know what, Dave, I wanted to add that to go back to the theme of always including the human intelligence that's out there, is respect that human intelligence. So an important part is making sure that those operators understand why we're doing something. It may be different, so they need to understand why. And it's not going to be like Dave said, we've always done it, and here's the reason why. If you've installed the discipline to dutifully capture information on a clipboard, here's why we want to digitize that. Here's how we want to make that process more visible to you. Obviously everything we do ultimately has to drive value for the business, but if we take a step back and start with, if it drives value for the operator, you're going to create the excitement that you need to have that acceptance that you got to have to be successful. And then back to Dave's pilot idea, that initial success is just going to breed the desire to spread that throughout the floor, and that human intelligence grows like wildfire.
Eric,
And
Darian's just brought up a really interesting point about change management, right? And one of the other risks that we see with customers is they think that a transformation initiative of Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 is an IT project, or they see it as an engineering project, and they try to put it into those silos because that's where it's always lived.
Right.
The reality of it is it's not an IT initiative. It's not an engineering initiative. It has components of those. And an organization has to be structured. And we like to set up customers where we create cross-functional teams that have the different representations of the disciplines so that we can drive those types of actions that need to be done, but not be necessarily driven and beholden by the old ways of doing things. Because to Darian's point, there is a significant, change management and behavioral management aspect of this. And that's why starting with a pilot or a proof of concept is always, something extremely important, because it allows you to build that momentum, that excitement, and that tempo, but it also allows you to generate some quick wins that helps that excitement level, but it also begins to generate that value return that you can take and begin to either invest back in the business or to invest in that acceleration of that rollout of that Industry 4.0 initiative as well too.
Yeah, and Dave, I would say William just threw in a really savvy comment on, that it's not a perpetual whiteboarding exercise. We are big fans of discouraging postponed perfection, and part of our smart factory solution with that right pilot environment. Part of my role is the delivery of our product. I mean, it's hours and days to see a noticeable impact and to iterate on how can we be better next shift or next hour than we are right now. And that's what really drives that excitement. And there you see the synergy of all the concepts that we've been talking about to excite the home team, create the value the organization needs, and set the table for ongoing continuous improvement, whether you call it BPM or linking or Lean Six Sigma, or you want to use your AI. All that starts with getting started in a meaningful way, not just talking about it.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it sort of comes back to Dave's opening comments about the 4 pillars. I mean, when we think about all these last few questions we've gotten through, it's a lot of focus on data integration, the human component of the change. So there's a lot of different dimensions that we need to look at these sorts of projects from. And I think that's what you guys have done a great job of sort of helping us unpack here today. So really appreciate that. Any closing advice that you would have for manufacturing teams that are about to embark on some sort of digital transformation journey?
I would just say,
I think.
Go ahead, Adam, please.
No, go ahead, Dave. It's fine. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, don't think of this as being, as I said before, an engineering or an IT initiative. Think it as a company initiative, and make sure that you have the right enabling technology to support you. A lot of customers, they're trying to use the investments that they've already made. We're not suggesting that you rip and replace everything that you've invested in, but select a platform, a next generation manufacturing platform that allows you to amalgamate all the data coming from these different data sources in a way that is very, very easy to employ from a low code, no code perspective. A lot of times customers view this as being a controls engineering initiative where you have to build a lot of, robust code and one-off types of integration solutions. Next generation manufacturing platforms are really low code, no code, where you can deploy these applications in a way that gets you to value very, very quickly. So that would be an area in a key area that I would say to always think about as you think about your plan moving forward. Adam?
Yeah, I think As with most things, you need to think about what the outcome you're trying to get to is. What as a business, where are you going? What are you trying to achieve in the market, and what's the best path to get there? And then I think one of the things that I would be remiss to not mention is having a good partner to help you with picking a platform and understanding, helping if you're not there, to find a partner that can really help you select a technology platform that's going to serve your needs, not just today, but over the next 10 years, that are going to be scalable and elastic as your business changes, whether it's geographically, whether it's the product mix, whether it's the customer base that might be changing itself. So think about those things, and think about partners that are really focused on business attainment of objectives, not implementing their technology, but what are you trying to get done as a business, and then how are they going to facilitate that change within your business? That's a people issue. It's a change management issue, but it has to be supported by the right technology. So those things go together. So having someone alongside of you that can help you navigate that, I have found very beneficial, because there's a lot to think of. There's the security aspect, the what do I do with my data aspect, what's the right solution aspect. These things come into play, and having advisors that can help you make those right decisions because they've helped others do it and they've done it themselves is really essential. And then business leadership within the organization. If you have all the right answers, but you don't have that business sponsorship inside your organization, change management is a very heavy lift without that. So knowing that when you say, hey, we want to do this, that as a business leader, you're kind of signing up for being the face of that initiative and really kind of owning it and coming alongside of the partners that are helping you put it into the organization, inject that change in the organization, is really essential. If it matters to you, your people will see it. If you're not there, they're going to see that too. And so I think those are very key elements in any kind of initiative related to business systems.
Yeah, totally agree. What would you close with, Ken? Closing advice for manufacturers out there?
Maybe. I just kind of go back to what Darian said earlier. If you're the process, if you're getting out on the field and playing the game, you're going to make mistakes. That's natural, but you're going to learn from that. All of the things that we're talking about, it's not a big bang to be, wow, we're suddenly an Industry 5.0 company. There's a lot of steps along the way, and learn from the mistakes, and it's okay to make them. And then that way you keep all of your human capital well invested in the process. They know they're supported. What Adam said, if you're communicating correctly, if something's not going right, it shouldn't be a surprise. It should be, hey, we recognize we're drifting a little. How do we get this right back on track? And, ultimately we achieve our objectives and the business garners great value.
Yeah, it's great sound advice. And I appreciate you guys being here today. Adam, how can listeners and viewers of this interview and this podcast, how can they learn more about you guys, about PCG?
Yeah, well, certainly we can include some information about our contact information in this chat. You can certainly look are available, or if you want to reach out to pcgservices.com or asmartfactory.com, you can learn about PCG as a whole and our particular IP that we've talked a bit about here today called Smart Factory. And Eric, I just want to say thank you for giving us this forum to talk about our solution. We're pretty excited about it. We love helping manufacturing companies. We know you do too. So we very much appreciate that. And Dave and Ken, I really appreciate you kind of sharing information about your baby, right? Smart Factory. So thank you so much for coming alongside of me today, guys, and helping share some about our company.
Well,
absolutely.
Thank you to the audience. Great questions.
Yeah. Thank you, all three of you, for being here today. You all three shared the hot seat, so it wasn't just Adam or any one of you that had to be in the hot seat here today. So you got to share it. Thank you to the audience for the great questions as well. This podcast will appear in probably 2 to 3 weeks, I believe it is, as part of our Transformation Ground Control podcast, which is released every Wednesday. You can find new episodes of the full podcast. You can go to transformationgroundcontrol.com. to listen to that. And you can listen to all the past episodes at that same website as well. So go to transformationgroundcontrol.com. Again, my name is Eric Kimberling. Thank you for being here. We do these live interviews related to digital transformation topics. Same time, same place. So check us out wherever you're listening or watching here today. Check us out. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing the same thing. We've got some great guests coming up here in the coming weeks. Thank you again, everyone, for being here today. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.